All right, it's Cinema Fireside. If you're listening live, it's a beautiful evening in Milwaukee as a bus rolls by. People wander up and down the fair sidewalks. It's really great out there. The sun obviously is riding low in its melancholic trajectory because we're in the month of September, and the Earth is getting away from the sun into the darker regions of the universe. So we are feeling that as we drift away from the sun, it rides lower across the horizon, casting its melancholic tint throughout the day. So, man, if you're into melancholy, you're gonna get your fill, undoubtedly. And we've got Gabe Van Handel on the phone on standby. We thank him very much. And life is precious. It's a dream when you're young. It's an open canvas. As you get on in years, you realize that those years are limited, and you want to make the most of them. Most certainly, we had the River West Radio benefit at the Coffee House on 19th in Wisconsin last night, Sunday night, and thanks everyone for showing up. It was a day. Yesterday was the opening of the Packers. They played Seattle up at Lambeau Field, and I was going to the grocery store to catch the pregame vibe because we have the mothership of a grocery store, 2 stories, all of that kind of stuff. It's a vital, actual social club in there. It's cool. And when I was walking up, I noticed that they had the street closed. They had a big TV out there. They had a bunch of people, and they were watching the game outside. So I was like, man, I'm not going to miss this. So I stood in one position, watched the entire first half there in Shorewood, standing up with a whole bunch of people. But I realized I didn't know not one of them. I was again experiencing that stranger in a strange land effect. At halftime, I went back to the grocery store, got a pizza, went home and made it. And what I like about watching the game is at home is you get to do odds and ends that need to be done. So the Packers picked up second half, beat Seattle 17-9. Just a great game in that second half. And normally my psychology is, man, I'm not going to leave the house. It's dark, stay in. But we had that benefit, and my psychology has changed over the days, weeks, months, and years, where it's all an adventure. So I went downtown, took Humboldt to water to Wisconsin, west on Wisconsin, and because I had my play What's in the Box there. And another thing, I wanted to be with my friends, and there was a number of acquaintances there, and I was like really looking forward to it. And these are productive people that do their thing, and that they have good hearts. There's different breeds of people, so on and so forth, and these are the good kind. And I mean, we had Sandy there, Sandy Weistow, and Zavla Play, and George Darrow at the helm. And I think Martin, were you there too? Yeah, Martin was there too. These are good people. I just really looked forward to being with friends that night. I didn't have any trepidation about the play or nothing like that, because I encountered so many people and have to do so much counterbalancing during the day that's old hat by now. It went very well. It starred my play, or this new play, or the current play is What's in the Box, and this time it starred Valerie Lightheart and Brendan O'Day, and I want to thank them immensely for being in the play. We had rehearsals on the 7th on Thursday at Studio Central across the street. They were kind enough to let us use the space, and that was a blast. Steve Spice was there, George Darrow, Tom Pankowski, all that. Oh, Tom Pankowski was there last night too. He always provides for a great sense of companionship, so that was good stuff. So yeah, Studio Central, we rehearsed, we did a read-through, then we did the understudy read-through, and then we did a walking rehearsal, a run-through, which was great. And then Sunday evening we did it. It was on book. It's all volunteer, and we don't have all that amount of time in these busy schedules, so they read it on book, but they were so great. It was just fantastic. And yeah, it was just a great productive night, just being with the people that you like, and on the swing back, let's see, I came up Holton and then cut down center, and then then there was obviously the other side of the coin, and people were hammered outside the corner bar, and I'm thinking, man, each to his own. But my side of the coin, obviously, is to do that productive stuff, and what someone else does is what they do. I would never get trapped into that lifestyle. That just ain't gonna work. I know what that is. Too much. Too much. Not cool, man. So, and Tom is kind enough to join us on the stage. He's a silent partner, though. He has the energy and vitality one would expect, but it's in a subdued way. Would that be correct? Yeah, he laughs and agrees, and I think we all agree. So then this morning, actually on Sunday, man, the New York Times was as thick as a brick because they have the season previews, and there's over 100 pages of it. It's great to one of our famous playwrights who wrote Disgraced. He's from Milwaukee. He had a huge or predominant article in the theater section on Sunday, and so it's fun reading that, informative. And then because it's autumn, there's nothing like reading about theater in the autumn, man. It's just good stuff, like science fiction in the summers, like with Ray Bradbury. And these Ray Bradbury stories, again, it's words become not the words that should be recognized. So when I say Ray Bradbury, the connection is science fiction, yet he writes these human stories, and they may have an analogous nature to machinations within the science fiction realm, but he does a lot of human stories about being human and the human experience. So it's not just rockets blasting away or so, because like I said, I never was into science fiction, but there's a reason why I got into it, and then on top of that, another reason recently. But anyway, especially with Ray Bradbury. So yeah, great stuff. I just wish I would have read more earlier on. When I don't really get into horror or anything like that, but that new It film is out, and it's not about the film itself. It's just about the context that I think the book came out in '86. Where were you in '86? And then I think in '90 a television adaptation came on. And so those are things to think about, man. That's 27 years ago, man. '90, wow. So it's not, again, the films of that. It's the context, or it's the elements that you get from that kind of stuff, thinking about it. So a lot of people live in context and not content. I think the majority of people are into content. A few are into context. They don't. The people who are into context don't care what the conversation is about. They just realize there's a conversation and enjoying it. So it's either context or content. And what's cool is after the play, then in the morning, reading in Simon Gray's The Early Diaries, it's this great journal that he kept on the making of his play, The Common Pursuit. And just what a fun thing to read, the daily machinations of creating a play and the redundancy of rehearsals, but the necessity of those rehearsals. And it's not only just that, it's also like, when they're doing The Exorcist back in the early 70s, they're shooting it in Georgetown, in D.C., and, so that means they're getting the Washington Post. The actors and actresses are smoking cigarettes, studying lines, maybe engaging in affairs, talking about where they're going to go out to eat that night, having wine, having coffee in the morning, reading the Washington Post, talking about, so-and-so in this latest review. All of that kind of great stuff, So when I think about like The Exorcist, it's not anything to do with horror or anything like that. I think more about what was going on while they were filming. And I've actually, there's a great book on visiting these writers, and one of them is I was going to say Jason Alexander, but he's a actor. We're talking about the other actor, Jason Miller. So he's the one of the priests in The Exorcist, so I was stunned to learn that he was an award-winning playwright who had written that championship season. And then I come across this book interviewing these writers. Well, it like describes going to where they are and so forth. So it's really cozy book, and Jason Alexander is one of those guys, or Jason Miller is one of those guys in it. So it's all quite amazing. And then I'm reading Werner Herzog's The Guide to the Perplexed, which is very, very necessary. The philosophy and the dedication to one's life and craft is extraordinary. So I think autumn brings out a lot of good things. And then Sunday night, falling asleep to radio dramas. On the way home, it was listened to. And then, yeah, it's very, very dreamlike. You're drifting into you're at the crest, of in the nocturnal haze, and these otherworldly situations are going on, and you're drifting off and waking back up. It's really great. And I know one of the stations is doing, obviously suspense and horror themed things in October and November. So yeah, I mean, if you can, and Gabe, we haven't forgot about you. We're about ready to roll soon with you. Check out stuff, those great radio dramas, and I can. There's great shows like Suspense, Inner Sanctum, Lights Out, Mysterious Traveler, CBS Radio Mystery Workshop or Theater. And then from Canada in the early 80s is Vanishing Point, Nightfall, Midnight. Also back further, you have The Weird Circle, The Witch's Tale. Just really, really fun stuff to drift off to sleep to. So there you have it. All that said, again, listeners, thanks for listening. Now, I woke up like around 3:30 this morning, really didn't get back to sleep, and then had a lot of, I would say, office work to do throughout the hours, but stuck to it hour after hour in the satellite office. So, Gabe, welcome to your world, my man.
Mark, thank you. It's good to hear your voice, man. Good to be on the show.
Absolutely, my man.
Really good. Really good to be here. Yeah, it's really strange sometimes. Sometimes when we do the show, there's literally 4 other things going on. I remember back in the Florida days, I would be walking in between jobs. Sometimes while we'd be doing the show, I'd be finishing, literally sometimes have 15 minutes of work left to do at the Hilton, and do the show with one arm while I explain to my manager, and I'm like, if you want me to do this job, there's one stipulation about employing me that I've told you. I have literally no requirements for this job other than that. I have no presets on hours as long as you don't schedule me during my other job, which is only after 3 p.m. As long as I can get out of here by 2:45, but on Mondays, or as it used to be Fridays for a long time, which in the service industry is just, this Friday and Saturday and Sunday, in varying degrees, are busy for completely different reasons, depending on whether you work private events or you work the linear insanity of service. So it's, but man, today it's having had a scheduled time in order, and the day, planning out the day, and of course it never goes as planned. Thank God. And but everything sort of came together today. I set a list of objectives down to do, and not only did they get done, but achieving way more than I was expecting to, creatively, personally, interpersonally, financially, just, getting the job done, helping out other people, making sure that all and then some were covered. Very good for a day off. On a Monday, of course, that means cinema Fireside at 7 o'clock. On a day off, or even on a day when you work, there's a certain set of objectives: personal, creative, spiritual, interpersonal, all this other stuff that I like to get done, or that I have this list I set aside that I read once in a while on my days off, or even on days when I have to work, of just keeping sort of a spiritual consciousness before the terror zone can set in. Because every once in a while, no matter how good
it has deeply set in. It is deeply set in, but somehow, some way, it will be dealt with. But thank you, Gabe, for bringing up what I just tried to forget. But thank you.
But that terror zone, as Mark and I have had many interesting conversations over the years in his van on the way to the station to do the show, over the phone for years when I lived in Florida, while both of us were getting 2 or 3 other things done, the shuffling of papers and organization of money and figuring out 4 or 5 other things. But always with the help of good people, especially friends and family, and just a clean consciousness, unfettered with guilt, remorse, shame, or some sort of snide purpose towards cutting. I mean, just cutting down others is something I'm really trying to work at. Just doing less of in all regards. Even people that I have to be around, coworkers or acquaintances, people that you have to be around, whether it's your employment or whatever. It's like these challenges that are put right there. It's like these little films, these little vignettes, or these little short stories, these little characters in the apartment buildings. And I've been very blessed that most of the tenants at the place I work in this apartment building of my mind, as I'm spending my time at work, sometimes doing very monotonous stuff, but always enjoying a full mind of memories and recollections, and having sometimes monotonous tasks to do is when I really pour over and really rewatch films. It's when I play movies over the most. It's when I really think about films the most. And what I'll usually do is fixate on a certain film or on like 1 or 2 films or an actor. And that's where a lot of like the way I remember dialogue, the way I remember the importance of a film is that after I watch a movie the first time, if I don't replay it in my mind really vividly about 2 days later, 3 days later, and keep doing that, the film fades, it disappears. I'll come across these movies that all of a sudden I'll remember, oh my God, I've watched that. And I have no memory of watching it. I don't know what happened in the film. I don't know, there's no point A, there's no point B. And it literally scares me because I usually have such a vivid recollection of every film that I've seen, even movies that I saw 20 years ago or something like that I only watched once. I'll just vividly remember movies pointedly almost as much as spending time with my family, or these really, really magical, humorous encounters with people. But then when a movie disappears, even if I know it was a really good film and I really enjoyed it, was really looking forward to it, I know I crossed it off a list, I know I spent time acquiring the film and watching it. It kind of freaks me out if I don't remember it. So in recent years, I've taken a lot of steps to really take supplements, take vitamins, eat a lot healthier. I've taken even more extreme steps in the last 7 months to live even more healthy than I was before by just eliminating certain toxins, by eliminating certain lifestyles altogether. And losing my memory is the thing that, if I start to really lose my memory, which there's no one has any control over if they lose their memory or not. It's it's a physical brain. Eventually, if it's going to go, it's going to go. Whether it's your short term, whether it's your long term, the human body is not meant to last forever, and thank God for that. But while I'm here, I definitely, storing memories has definitely sort of been my calling, and it used to just be for my own selfish purposes. But thanks to several other means, I feel like it's not just for me. Like if I can share some of this stuff and bring knowledge or joy or conversation or depth to other people's lives with my recollections of films, music, or even just life itself, then those memories have more purpose than just making me happy or just being a part of my life or just being something that I want. And who knows, even after I die, maybe they'll still continue to bring happiness to other people. So I really, really want to with that in mind, I've been really taking it more serious about really doing my best to preserve my memory. Because I have a lot of people that come to me for advice about films, that ask me about films, that just want to talk to me about films, that just enjoy talking about movies with me. A number of people that I've connected with from all over the world through this show have started to reach out to me on a personal level, and that brings me a lot of joy. It's really cool to have these friends that you otherwise would just, not even be strangers passing by in the night. These are people that I would never make physical or, interweb contact. I would have no reason. There'd be no pointed direction for me to single them out of the billions of people on this planet to make contact with. So it's pretty cool that out of all this fuzz, all this space, and all this nonsense, somehow we've all found each other. And once a week, we all kind of come together and we all have this shared moment where we just kind of chill out and we talk about movies. So it's been interesting. I was reflecting on this a couple of days ago, and I was like, man, because I got some really good watching in this week. Because I wanted stuff to report back on for the show. I wanted to have some movies that have been on my list for a while that I have the means to watch that, I just wasn't watching for my own reasons. And I was like, I have enough time to set aside to watch at least 4 films this week. It's ridiculous for me to say that I don't, for me to not do that. And if people are listening and if people are taking their time to tune in, then I better give my time. So,
and we thank you, Gabe, for that.
It just hit in. And Mark, thank you for showing up. Thank you all for always showing up early. I mean, you always make it a point to show up to things early, even if it's a movie in the theater. I remember going to movies with you, Mark, is always it's a great experience. Doing anything with you is always a great experience because you take things very serious, and you don't go through life with this sort of like, oh, whatever attitude. Like, I there are things, Mark, that we have in common that, we just take things that other people would take very lightly, very serious, because we look at it in a very serious way, because we don't necessarily watch films for entertainment value. We watch them because we have to watch them. We read books because we have to read them.
Daily life is entertaining enough. I don't
exactly.
need to create an artificial stimuli beyond that.
I couldn't agree more. So it's like these things have to be done. If they didn't, they wouldn't get done. It's my life's work. It's my life's calling. I have to do it. If I didn't, I just don't feel like there'd be any point to my free time if I was just ambling around outside of my time with my family and my friends and my work, and trying to help people, doing the best I can to allow other people to have some freedoms and some time, and just even offering my services as a babysitter, helping out with day-to-day errands, helping out with chores, helping out with menial tasks, so other people don't have to do everything. Besides that, my own free time, when there is some outside of like obviously getting stuff written in the notebook, which, man, if that doesn't get done, no one else is going to write down the stuff that needs to get written down. No one else is going to do the editing, the writing, the rewriting. But on a very simple level, watching a movie is a very simple act. You turn on the movie and you are present. It's, reading a book, everyone reads at a different speed. Everyone reads in a different way, at a different rate, and takes different content. Everyone understands words differently, and everyone watches movies differently. There's no doubt about that. Watching films, just as reading books, is a subjective, personal experience, but movies play at the same rate for everyone. Now, whether you choose to watch the movie or not is up to you. I know people that play around on their phones, or kind of like, don't even look at the screen, or doing other stuff, or talking, joking around, laughing, like having conversation. And Mark, I know you and I have talked about this on the show and outside of the show many times, like your experience with the film The Girlfriend Experience.
Oh yeah.
And I've had that with people my entire life. And as I've gotten older, it just is more pointed every single day. the reason I like to watch movies alone more and more and more and more. When I go to a theater, I like to be alone. When I watch them at home, I really like to be alone. And it's not because I have any aversion to people. I'm definitely an extrovert for the most part. But man, like when it's film time, I want to watch the film. Even if it's purely for entertainment value, which it rarely is, I can't relax if other people around me are distracting me from the film. I can't relax and enjoy myself and be entertained if other people are missing. It just annoys me if there's a great film or if there's moments of genuine artistry or worth or value, good screenwriting, good acting, good directing, good production values, even just worthwhile components that are floating off into nothing. And then there's a critique of the film at the end that is, unfounded. It tampers my opinion of people. It tampers my opinion of how people live their lives. It tampers with my opinion of where are people's opinions of themselves, of their lives, of their own consciousness, of how people think. It just tampers with my idea of who a person is when I watch other people watch a movie. Because my mind starts to drift into the negative space, and I don't like going there. I don't like being critical of other people. Being aware is different from being critical, but I have a critical mind. I definitely can tear a movie apart very fiercely and very quickly.
Speaking, let me do some preemptive critical thinking, Gabe. You keep going, my man. I wonder if I should move the car up a little bit, because I could see someone just parking right in front of me in that tiny space, and then I am trapped. What do you think?
Mark, I think that you're thinking cleanly, clinically, and objectively, and I think you should move the car. And if you do that,
my man, can you hold the fort down for about 120 seconds?
I'm going to hold the fort down, Mark. You do, and take care of life as it comes up to you.
And hold on. Martin, are you there? Is that cool? I'm going to move, or Sarah Lou. Gabe's going to hold down the fort for about 120 seconds. All I'm doing is moving the car up. Okay. Everything's been clear. Gabe, I trust you can hold the show for 3 minutes.
Tom
just had a remark, but okay, my man. It was one of his comedic quips.
Oh, I love that. Well, Tom's quick with those.
Yes, he is. So Gabe, there cannot be any dead spots. You must fill the void of silence, okay?
That's not my style.
Okay, my man. I'll return within about 180 seconds. Thank
Excellent. You. Not a problem. So, with that being said, watch films discernibly. As Mark talks about going through life with discretion, discernment, choice, don't be disillusioned. Don't play games with yourself, and don't wander around. Don't, spend the time to smell the dandelions and convince yourself that you're smelling the flowers. Don't be ridiculous. Use your time well. Use your time fruitfully. Be alive. Live. Go out there. Do it. You have a dream? Do it. Stop dreaming. Stop sleeping. Get on your feet and go do it. You want to write a book? Write a book. You can't find a publisher? Publish it yourself. Put it on Amazon. You want to write a screenplay? Read a manual about writing screenplays. There's 1 million books out there and 1 million used bookstores about writing screenplays. You don't have the proper format? Find the proper format. It's right there online. It's free. You want to get into the Writers Guild? Register in the Writers Guild. You want to get represented by an agency? Find a means of distributing your script to agencies that will represent the genre that you're writing in. Nothing is stopping you. You want to clean your carpet? Rent a carpet cleaner. Go out there and do it. You don't study enough for your exams? Shut up and go study for your exams. Your girlfriend talks too much and makes you feel bad about yourself? Leave her. There's more of them out there. Your boyfriend beats you? Leave him. Go live your life. Be productive. Don't let people hurt you. Don't hurt other people.
Gabe, This is incredible. I walk in to hear this. It was not expected. I mean, you really took command, man. Little did I know. Wow.
Well, I was just talking. I was sick of hearing people whine, and I'm sick of hearing people say that they can't do it. You can do it. Stop saying you can't do it. Stop it. Anyway.
Well, yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
You gotta watch who you encounter, certainly.
So, Mark, this week, I got some good viewing. I got some really good viewing done. I'll tell you, I knocked off a couple of these films that have been on the list for years. And, this is stuff that I read about that A.O. Scott was saying essential viewing on two of the films that I watched this week. And man, I just couldn't have agreed more with his assessment. So I finally got around. I'm trying to watch the cinema of Seijun Suzuki,
right,
from Japanese auteur from the 1960s. A lot of listeners will be very familiar with his work. He's made a number of films over the years, but mostly his films have this sort of, and they've been widely copied. Not copied, I'm sorry. There seems to be a large amount of homage to him in the last decade. And I think a lot of times the credit is sort of incorrectly given to Tarantino. And a lot of that, I think, is due to the fact that Tarantino has specifically taken a lot of Suzuki's style and acquiesced it as his own. There's a number of Japanese filmmakers and American filmmakers that Tarantino's directly taken subjective cues and literal visual cues from. Don Siegel, the great machismo, rugged individualist filmmaker, and Sam Fuller from the 1960s and 50s, 60s, and 70s definitely have this huge influence on Tarantino's means of rough, sort of hewn American dialogue. That's really undercut, poetic. Where it really has this. It has this direct frankness, but it also has this extremely pretentious, sort of non sequitur randomness to it. Sam Fuller was a genius at that kind of stuff. Don Siegel gravitated towards films that had these sort of eccentric, wild pedal cues on the side. But Seijun Suzuki, this 1960s Japanese filmmaker, did a lot of that stuff with his visual makeup. He would have a lot of random asides in his films. His movies would jump around and have these very strange characters that would have these very strange quirks. But his two most notable films by far, having just seen Tokyo Drifter, is definitely Tokyo Drifter from 1966, which is just a straight-up, hard-boiled gangster flick, but Japanese in its style, and it's it has some minor themes in it, but I wouldn't call it a masterwork, but it's very entertaining. It's very well shot. It has this great use of telephoto lens, and it has this sort of shaky handheld, unhinged quality. Oftentimes the focus goes out, and you have this wild palette of colors, oranges and greens and blues and whites and reds, and there's a lot of blood in the film, or at least a stark use of blood, sudden uses of blood. There's lots of all the muzzle flashes from the guns are this loud, bright, vibrant color, like they're either pinks and yellows and blues. So he used other minerals besides just gunpowder just adds little flashes, literal flashes like that to the film. Branded to Kill, though, which is another film of his, I'll repeat the title, Branded to Kill, is definitely his masterwork. A lot of other films, such as Lucky Number 11 and some other like postmodern gangster films throughout the years, have definitely borrowed from the main premise of that film, which is that these competing gangsters are competing for the title of the number one assassin. Branded to Kill is so funny and absurd, but weirdly poetic.
Yeah, dude, I think I have that one. I mean, I think I've seen it a couple times. I'm tired here, but that's around like 67, right?
Yep. It came out right around the same. Tokyo Drifter and Branded to Kill come out. Yeah. It is 67. Tokyo Drifter is 66, and Branded to Kill is 67. And Seijun Suzuki is part of the Japanese new wave that comes out around that time, where cinema is completely upended and does these radical backflips on itself to sort of push out the old of this at the time, like the filmmakers that had been making these tired films in these tired conditions, these tired ways for decades and decades. And the studio system in Japan is very similar to the studio system in America, where you had set generations of filmmakers where you worked up the ranks. In Japan, it was much more like Japanese feudal culture, where you had people that once they were set into their positions or roles, they were set there for like 30 years. So you would have editors, just editors, cinematographers, just cinematographers. But if you became a director, which, moving titles around, it did happen in the earlier days of Japanese silent cinema, which is actually one of the most prolific periods of filmmaking in any culture, but most of it is lost due to World War II, and most of these film prints just being destroyed after the films had done their initial runs. But a lot of the great filmmakers from Japanese society, from early film scholars of Japanese cinema, have said that the great masterworks of Japanese cinema and of cinema itself were these Japanese silent films, but most of them are lost, so they'll never be seen again. But what we do have is the fact that a lot of those filmmakers were trapped in these roles for generations, and then there were a number of filmmakers, about probably close to 20, that started taking a lot of bold risks, and the public was really hungry for it. Imamura, who is a filmmaker, I'm going to list off some Japanese filmmakers from that time. Imamura, Gosha, Oshima, Seijun Suzuki were part of this newer, even Mitsuguchi, I'm sorry, not Mitsuguchi, Kobayashi, were all part of this new school of radical, sort of Western influenced, but supremely still Japanese, somewhat influenced by American cinema, somewhat influenced by French cinema, which a lot of the French New Wave was, deeply influenced by American noir and American genre films. But the Japanese definitely started crafting their own things, especially when looking back at the war and post-war. What did it all mean, and how, and what was our role? Who are we as a people? So there's a lot of good films from that period. I cannot recommend doing thorough. I mean, we've done several shows years and years ago, back in 2012 and 2013. I know I did like 4 or 5 shows on Japanese cinema after reading about 4 or 5 books on sort of a mini histories of mini periods of cinema.
Thank you.
And man, there's so much good stuff. But if I really had to narrow it down, I'd say Seijun Suzuki is good for outsiders. Imamura and obviously from the older school of filmmaking, a more reserved and more traditionally Japanese, and I guess you would say it's more easily observable as Japanese. Mark, we talked about Ozu last week,
right,
who is one of the almost untested, unrivaled master auteurs of cinema itself. If one is going to dive into the films of Ozu, which means diving into the currents of cinema itself in many ways. I mean, language like that is extremely pretentious. I'm not going to say that it isn't. I'm not going to say that I haven't thought about stuff like this for years and years, where I've sat at work thinking about the films of Ozu. Exactly. But as Mark brought up last week when we were talking about the Sight and Sound 250, and how Tokyo Story sort of bizarrely worked up the ranks, and I had to agree with him, especially with Vertigo as well. This bizarre sort of coincidences of mine voting for it, and the fact that Mark and I both find a sort of elitist pomposity and preposterousness to that, but also that these are numbers and figures, and these are definite figures. They're just mathematical equations. Tokyo Story is a masterful, wonderful film, but man, Floating Weeds and which is also called Drifting Weeds, depending on which version of it you get. It's the same film, but it's just had two different titles at different times. And Late Spring, which is another film directed by Ozu. I just cannot I've recommended those films very adamantly on the show before, but I can't recommend them enough. That Late Spring is maybe the most poetic film I've ever seen. Understatedly poetic. It's haunting. It's crushing. It's such a potent, powerful, tender film about family relationships and about a father and a daughter, which is essentially the film that Ozu continued to remake in one way, shape, or another throughout his entire career in slightly differing forms. But Late Spring and Tokyo Story definitely have the poetic nuances, which if you're not familiar with Japanese, with these great Japanese films, these like sort of statues of Japanese cinema, those are definitely two films to start with. The Insect Woman is another great film. Oni Baba is a great horror film from 1964, whose director escapes me right now, but that's just an immense achievement. That movie is so haunting and so potent, and it has this sort of lunatic, psychosexual sort of precursor to Cronenberg in some ways. It just has this real manic, sweaty, humectant, violent sexuality to it that thinking about this movie coming out in 1964 just blows my mind, as does some of the films of Teshigara, that's a filmmaker, with The Woman in the Dunes, which was a very popular art film that came across the shores and was very popular in the United States. That's a Japanese film from 64 that was hugely popular in the States around that time, and has also, it's a high concept, sort of almost science fiction like allegory for society and for sexuality and for all sorts of societal themes, but ends up becoming this incredibly strange and incredibly powerful and visually beautiful film, where a man gets trapped underneath the sand dune with a woman for various reasons that I won't get into, and he's kept there by this town in order to dig up the sand, which the people use as the means of income for their village, and he's an outsider from an urban complex, and his relationship with the woman in the dunes just gets more and more strange as the film goes on. But it's a very beautiful film, and it's a very powerful film. Highly recommended stuff. So we kind of went off on the side of Japanese cinema here, but
welcome back.
But yeah, coming back. So with that to say, Seijun Suzuki, very entertaining stuff. I also reported on. I went to finally see Dheepan, Dheepan, which is a French film from 2015, which won the Golden Palm at Cannes that year, which is basically like the Best Picture prize at the Cannes Film Festival, and which is, some people, I would consider it the highest honor that a film can get in some ways, because the festival is put together by this jury. Well, it's not the festival, but this award is given by this jury that's put together. It's of international film stars and icons, and usually the film itself that wins is a little bit biased on French culture, because it's usually it tends to be a French film that wins most years, and it tends to be a film that's critical of French society. It is a French film festival, so it makes sense. But also, they sort of have a tendency to give awards to a certain set or a certain type of filmmaker. It makes a certain type of understated, obviously poetic film with obviously understated poetry. But they also do select these films that have these really powerful, potent themes underneath that aren't bash you in the face all the time. But sometimes they choose films that I just are so loudly expressive and stylish and potent that they just can't be denied. And sometimes it's annoying that they can't be denied. When we look back in retrospect at the films that have won the Golden Palm in years, sometimes it's so dutifully obvious. In other years, it just seems so absurdly crazy at some of the titles that have won. But in honor of Mark, you had talked about years ago, maybe about 5 years ago, on the show. You talked about trying to watch films that had been nominated, that had won Best Picture at the Academy Awards, just as a means of seeing the collective archival, archaeological history of films that the American Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences deemed the best pictures of certain years. And we were talking just about how awful some of these films from certain years, and how tired and cliched and just surprisingly bad, sometimes unsurprisingly, it really pulled up some really interesting thoughts, because my views on mainstream American cinema were changing around that time. So going on that journey with you and watching like Cimarron and Wings and some of these movies in the early days of the American Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences, they're just they haven't aged well, and I don't know that they ever were that great of films. So
I never thought Grand Hotel was that great of a film that won Best Picture in '32, and I don't think Wings from '27 is remotely comparable to Wings from '66, and so on and so forth. Yeah, and I think it happened one night. I think that. Am I correct in that one in 34?
34, yeah, Frank Capra's film.
Yeah, I saw that on 35 millimeter, like about 35 years ago. So, fond memories of that, certainly. And there's I've seen many of the best, well, not many, but a reasonable amount from the 30s and 40s, and throughout the decades, actually, best pictures. I know someone was trying to do that from the ground up, and that's an admirable task, and it can most certainly be done. I think it's an interesting thing to see each best picture from 27 on up to the present. I think it's not that they're necessarily best picture. It's just an interesting chronology of that kind of like cream of the crop, in a sense, history throughout the years, definitely. So man, I tell you, it's beautiful, and what's amazing too is going to the library, and we got a free books lobby, and recently I did a double check and I found a book. I was like blown away. Professional radio writing from 46 on writing radio dramas and all of that stuff. It's incredible. And I want to thank Tom Pankowski for he handed over a book to me, Breaking into Nashville, about songwriting in Nashville and so forth. So thank you, Tom. And Tom also points out that it's Brian De Palma's birthday today. And if you're only familiar with De Palma with a kind of like in a populist notion from Sisters 73 on up, he actually was one of those experimental auteurs in the 60s and 70s. I'm going to see if I can name all six of them. So De Palma, before his commercial breakthrough with the horror film Sisters, he had Greetings, Hi Ma, Get to Know Your Rabbit, Dionysus in '69, Murder a la Mode, and The Wedding, or The Wedding Party. The Wedding Party. Thank you, Tom. Yeah. So, of those four, Greetings, Hi Mom, Dionysus in '69, and Murder a la Mode, just great forays into that experimental idea of American cinema that most likely haunted the universities at that time, because I don't see them really going to mainstream cinemas, maybe like at the Drive-In in 42nd Street, some of them. But, you'd have to be a university student to see something maybe like Peter Walken's Punishment Park. And I was thinking, man, where did they ever see that kind of stuff? So I'm sure if you get a hold of someone from back in the day, they could tell you their experience with it.
Experimental cinema from back then, the means of communicating about film festival. I mean, the Toronto Film Festival is going on right now, and I'm reading all the coverage online as we speak. Exactly. Some getting coverage from what's left of some of reputable film publishing, film publications that are not quarterly or monthly. There were a number of great film magazines that were daily, film newspapers that were daily for a while, all online publications that were just of the highest highest literary order, and they came to pass a few years ago. So it's unfortunate, but we still have the New York Times, the Guardian, Variety, a few others, but of really high-standing literary academia, we are unfortunately very short in terms of that daily press, that daily viewership. So we have the AV Club, we have the New York Times, and those are pretty much the two best. So we have those, and that's pretty cool. So in fact, I'm behind on my coverage of it, but I'm eagerly looking forward to going into it. Toronto's interesting because it's sort of a convergence of films that have played at all these other festivals, like at Sundance or at Cannes and at a few South by Southwest. It's like everything sort of comes together. And so in some cases there are films that are playing there that, film critics are like, like the major screenings, filmmakers, industry professionals won't have to see a lot of the films that are playing there. And Toronto is such a big festival. It's the biggest film festival in the world, I believe. There's more films that are screened there. I think there's last year there were 475 or something, and this year they toned it back intentionally. They stated that they wanted to tone it back to about 350 or 380 to sort of allow it a little more accessibility. There's a few theaters that are not participating in the festival this year that have been part of it for years and years and years, and for whatever reason, I'm assuming it has something to do with just having to deal with the influx of so many people, the ebb and flow of hundreds and thousands of people. But there were some really good films that came out this year that are still making the rounds, so that's just super cool. But yeah, I got off track there with my discussion of the Golden Palm.
Hey, you know what? Well, getting back on track, being at De Palma's birthday, as Tom Pankowski so dutifully pointed out, did you? I have yet to see the documentary on him by
it's great.
Noah Baumbach.
Noah Baumbach and Jake Paltrow.
Yeah.
I talked about it on the show maybe 2 months ago or so, 3 months ago.
Yeah.
Man, just a delicious entertainment. Highly recommended for anyone who loves films, especially if you love documentaries about films. Great stuff. Mark, are you aware of this movie Deepon that won the Golden Palm 2 years ago? Because it was on my radar, and I knew it was a controversial choice. I knew that people were a little surprised at it winning. But then there was this sort of secondary wave of opinion that said, no, this film really is a powerhouse. This is a potent, beautiful film. I can never pronounce, I never took French. So whenever I pronounce French film directors' names in their native language, or even in English, I always mispronounce it. So I'm not going to try to. But man, I think this guy's won before. There was a film that won the Golden Palm a number of years ago called The Class, that I really, really liked, but it was like a minor disappointment. I felt like it was so intent on being de-stylized, it actually ended up being overly aware of its anti-style. But it was a really, really well-made sort of, it was a semi-improvised film using non-actor school children in this setting where this teacher has to deal with low-income housing children from multitudes of ethnic backgrounds. Well, there's another film that deals with low-income housing in Paris called Deepon, which is available on some streaming services. And, it's a stunning film. I haven't been able to stop thinking about it. It crosses genres very fast, very quickly, very easily, and very difficultly, too, at times, because it deals with some subjects and some themes that are not easily reckoned. They're easily dealt with social norms, social cues, being a foreigner, losing one's culture, civil war, loss, memory, regret, violence, identity. It's just there's so much going on in this film, and so much of it is understated or just slowly. There's none of this painful expository dialogue that you see in most movies where it's like this, the whole film is just this contrivance to get to more contrivances, so that way we can all pat ourselves on the back for having contrived each other. It's a film that actually has a point, has a purpose, and enjoys where it's going, and loves its characters, even when they do, these terrible and horrible things to each other, because it has a real, honest humanity to itself. I was thoroughly engrossed. Very, 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 very profoundly moving at times. It falls into the traps of being a movie in the last 10 minutes of the film, and I just sort of chose to ignore some of the sudden detours that the film takes at the end. But for the most part, I was blown away. And another film that I heard about from A.O. Scott in the New York Times a few years ago, called The Kindergarten Teacher, which is an Israeli film, came out in, I think, December of 2014 in the States, but was mainly listed as a film on best of lists for 2015 because most people didn't see it until 2015. Just a powerful, haunting, unforgettable, poetic film about poetry. It's another film that I've seen in the last couple of months, Patterson being a film explicitly about poetry. This is another film explicitly about poetry and about the world being really unmade and unkempt and really unforgiving, and really a time that is not kind to poets or poetry. There's this woman, the woman who was a kindergarten teacher, who discovers a 5-year-old student who is a natural poet, almost like these poems are flowing through him from another lifetime or from another person. And this child is, in some ways, a seemingly ordinary child, but has these spurts of natural just grace and wonder. And it's not done in this cantankerous, laborious, phony style. It's done in this really weirdly natural way where you actually believe that this child, that there is no acting going on, that this child really is experiencing these flights of poetry.
Yes. And here's I'm going to have to make a not so poetic segue, Gabe, as this hour does come to a close.
It must.
So, Gabe, thanks as always for your great presence. You really keep the ship afloat, so we appreciate that, my man. All the data that you ingest in your poetic way of bringing it forth to us, okay?
Absolutely, Mark. It's been my pleasure, and it's been, as always, great to spend an hour with you.
Likewise, Gabe. Have a great night, my man.
You too, Mark. We'll see you all later. Bye.
See ya. Okay, Gabe Van Handel, I really appreciate it because he really does his homework, and I'm not going to, float around for an hour in some existential haze, while this man is very extemporaneously acute. He knows his business, and he knows it well. Listeners, we thank you for listening. It's the evening, man. I'm going home. I'm passing out. If I can read for 10, 15 minutes, hallelujah, man. But I'm looking forward to some serious sleep here. So, and I hope you guys get some good sleep as well, man. Definitely. So we will be on at the same time next week on WXR WLP 104.1 FM Milwaukee. To hear past episodes, visit riverwestradio.com/shows and click Cinema Fireside.